Welcome into Sports Memo's Betting Podcast. College football, every game on the board, bowl season, segment number 2 with Mid-Major Matt. Mid-Major Matt, welcome to the pod. How are you?
Doing good, Drew. Enjoying the holiday. We had a good start. Last podcast, we gave out a couple winners and some plenty of information. Hopefully, we'll do so again this time.
Hopefully, we will find more winners than losers and give out some good betting information on this. And we're going on this segment from Christmas Eve's matchup here, 221-222, BYU and Hawaii, all the way down to the end of Monday, December 30th card, Mississippi State, Louisville. That's rotation number 289-290 if you're keeping record at home. So that is a bunch of games. We got to get right after it, Matt. Talking about a game here I love, and degenerate gamblers out there will know what I'm talking about. It's the Christmas Eve, 8 p.m. Eastern kick here, BYU at Hawaii. There's going to be people at Christmas Eve events, family parties. The game might be on in the background, and there's gamblers out there like myself that like to have some action on it. I haven't betted as of now. I will in the next day. Yeah, only got about a little over 24 hours to decide on something, Matt. So hopefully you can help me out here. BYU, help the listeners out as well. -2 we're seeing in Hawaii. I believe there's only 2 home teams in bowl games, and this is one of them. We saw FAU at home look good. I was there, Matt. They won at home. And we're seeing Hawaii now at home as an underdog, +2, similar to FAU. 64 being the total here, Matt. I'll throw it over to you. It's Christmas Eve night. This is going to be a heavily bet game, singled out, primetime game here. BYU at Hawaii, this one on ESPN. How would you look to bet it, man?
So there's a bunch of things, and we talked about this in the first podcast. There were a lot of questions regarding the quarterbacks. We still don't know who's going to start for Hawaii, whether it's going to be McDonald or it's going to be the Cordero kid. McDonald's had a great season so far, but it feels like they've had the quick yank when he has struggled at times with the interceptions. They bring the Cordero kid. Look, this is a rivalry game. These two teams do not like each other, and it's a big game for BYU because they recruit a ton of Hawaiian kids. They recruit a ton of kids from that area. That's the one thing that usually when you play in the Hawaii Bowl, you would lean towards the home team for because, look, going to Hawaii, all the pomp and circumstance of being on the beach, well, a lot of these BYU kids have done that before. They're just coming home, so they won't be fazed as much by everything that a normal person would be in a trip to Hawaii. Last year, these two teams played 49-23 BYU. 2 years ago, BYU won 30-20. Look, it's a tough spread for me. Zach Wilson makes a whole lot of difference. If you remember last year, Zach Wilson went, 19 for 19 in the bowl game. They score a ton of points. Their defense is not terrible against the pass. They're ranked 36. The coaching staff has put the kicker competition up, so that's something to watch between Jake Oleroyd and Skylar Southam. BYU has started more players than any other team in the country due to roster shuffles and injuries. That's 50 players that they've started so far this season. There's a couple guys who could see some action. Emmanuel Escupa at running back, Bracken El Bakri, a defensive lineman. They have good chances to play. Everybody traveled, so that's good. With regards to the actual side here, look, BYU has the advantages of a lot of the teams that don't, as we said, with regards to Hawaii. But can Hawaii do that whole get up and down thing? I don't think BYU wants to get up and down with Hawaii. As we showed, they played one high-scoring game last year and a lower 50 points game 2 years ago. So, look, it's a really sharp number here. I'd love to take the over because it feels like one of those games that are going back and forth. But I don't know if BYU obliges here. I lean to BYU and I lean to the under, but I don't know yet if I'm going to play anything in this one.
Yeah, Matt, I don't think it really matters too much who the quarterback is. I know what you were saying about Cordero and the interceptions with McDonald, but it seems like Rolovich goes back and forth with the two. I tend to think that the handicap is up front. Can Hawaii handle BYU's defensive front, and on the other side, can Hawaii's defensive front stand up to BYU's kind of offensive line there? And if they can, I think Hawaii has better athletes on the outside. It's just that's a big if, not to mention it is a home game for Hawaii. I would give a little bit of credence there towards the Rainbow Warriors. I like Hawaii +2. I just haven't gotten there yet. Any feel there on kind of the defensive front, and who do you think wins that battle?
Well, Hawaii allows 31.7 points per game. They give up over 200 yards rushing, which is 105th. But the good thing is BYU's had so many injuries at running back, that position is not one of their strengths. You talked about it. This game is the only one that's going to be played, and Vegas and the odds makers know that a lot of people are going to bet this game. So it's going to be one of the sharpest spreads out there because they know if they mess up, if there's a line move that goes against them, then they're going to get hammered because, as you said, all eyes are on this game on a Christmas Eve night. To me, I haven't seen enough Hawaii to know, usually at East Coast, I'm on bed before the Hawaii games start. I've watched a lot of BYU. I've seen them out physical teams. I've seen them, I saw the Liberty game where they out physical Liberty. Granted, that was, a different type team here. It's a great game. And, this might be a perfect time to go live into it. Watch a drive or two. Watch the pace of BYU. If Hawaii scores, does BYU quicken up a little bit? And I know that's not necessarily what you want to hear on the podcast, but this might be the perfect game to let a drive or two go and then bet live depending upon what you see.
All right, Matt, good stuff. We got rotation number 223, 224 up next. Thursday, December 26th card. This is the day game, 4 o'clock Eastern kick here. Might be my favorite bet of the bowl season here, Matt, in terms of the confidence ones. This was right towards the top with me. We're talking the Miami Hurricanes at Louisiana Tech Bulldogs. I say at, it's about an hour drive from Ruston, Louisiana to Shreveport, Louisiana, so they're not technically at home, but very close to the campus here. -6 or -6.5, that's the Hurricanes. 50 being the total in this one, Matt.
Yeah, I jumped in on this one early. The numbers if this was a game that was being played probably in September, Miami would probably be a heavier favorite. Miami's got the better athletes, but everything about this matchup, and I jumped in early and got Louisiana Tech plus 7.5. It's the question of, does Miami want to be there? Do they want to, the day after Christmas, with their families, spending it in Louisiana? Look, they're going to have to spend all their Christmas festivities there. Guess who doesn't have to travel anywhere? Louisiana Tech. The kids, pretty much for the most part, are going to stay home. I'm betting a lot of families probably went to Shreveport, and they don't have that far of a drive for this game. I don't know what Miami's mindset is. The loss to FIU, the loss to Duke is massive underdogs, or massive favorites, excuse me. This team is 2-10 in bowl games since beating Florida in 2004. We've already seen, and we talked about this in the first podcast, several players, Jonathan Garvin and Trayvon Hill, are both sitting it out. Michael Pinckney just announced like a day or two ago, the linebacker, that he's not playing in the bowl game. Second in tackles, 5 sacks, 12.5 tackles for loss. Jeff Thomas, one of the wide receivers, is not playing in this game because he's getting ready for the bowl. We still don't know who's going to be at quarterback. They even threw out the idea of putting Tate Martell at quarterback, although, the offensive coordinator, Dan Enos, was talking about how, he's not ready, but they're still kind of, making him prepare for it here. Man, the one thing I don't like here is Manny Diaz is going to give younger players the time instead of these guys. And you would think that Miami's backups are going to be pretty good here. So that's a bit of a concern. You look on the other side. Skip Holtz is 5-0 under Skip Holtz in the playoffs, or in the bowls, 6-1 since 2008. Jamar Smith is really good. The reason why this team lost 2 games down the stretch was they didn't have Jamar Smith. They didn't have Adrian Hardy. They ran for just 1 touchdown in their 3 losses, 25 in their 9 wins. Miami's got a good run defense, so that could be an issue here. But, look, I like Louisiana Tech here. They've converted on 42% of their tries on third down. That's the best in Conference USA, 32nd in the nation. Miami is dead last in college football, converting just 26% of their third downs. If this was a normal game, Miami would probably win rather easily. But home game for Louisiana Tech, a rare opportunity to play an ACC school. And I love Louisiana Tech plus the points. I'd probably play this down to, oh boy, I like the 6. Once it gets below 6, I don't like it as much. But I think there's a shot that Louisiana Tech wins this game outright.
Yeah, I'm with you. And you can get, money lines anywhere between Louisiana Tech plus 180 and plus 210. And, you can find them right now as we're talking. We're talking on Monday, December 23rd. Louisiana Tech as high as plus 6.5. I agree with you, man. I think Louisiana Tech's the side here. Pretty much you hit on a lot of the keys there. I mean, Skip Holtz and what he's been able to do in bowls. I think Louisiana Tech is a pretty talented Conference USA team. Could have, I don't want to say on the same level as FAU, but pretty much everyone else in the conference, talent-wise, I would put them up right there with them. It's just the injuries at the critical times in their season kind of kept them down. So I think they really show Miami something here on December 26th, and I think they win outright. So I'm with you, Matt. Louisiana Tech seems to be the side. 225, 226 here. Pittsburgh at Eastern Michigan, and again I said at, but it's I believe in Detroit. -11 or -11.5. That's the Pittsburgh Panthers in Detroit Ford Field. 49 being the total here, Matt.
This is kind of the dog game of the day. And, look, if I don't have to, and I'll give some facts and information, I probably won't be playing this one because what's Pittsburgh's motivation? If you look, this is the last bowl of the Tier 1 or Tier 2 bowls for the ACC. And basically, this team probably should be in the Military Bowl. We'll get to that. They probably should be someplace else. But instead, they get the Quick Lanes Bowl in Detroit once again the day after Christmas. Most likely, the Panthers are going to spend their Christmas in Detroit. No offense to the people from Detroit who watch this. And look, you look at some of the things. Pittsburgh does not run it well. They're 121st in the FBS. There's only 2 bowl teams that are worse in Washington State, who just doesn't run it, and Florida. But their defense is really good. They're ranked 11th in the FBS. They've held half their opponents to 20 points or less. They've attempted 471 pass attempts this year, which is over 100 more than they did last year. Pittsburgh's had a rough bowl history, so if you're looking for some sort of motivation on the Pitt side, maybe they want to get a victory. They lost in the Military Bowl, the Navy, in 2015. 2016, they lost to Northwestern. Last year, they had their shot in the Sun Bowl against Stanford, and they lost that game 14-13. So that's kind of the Pitt side of it. On the Eastern Michigan side, Eastern Michigan's played 7 one-score games this year. Pittsburgh's actually played an 8. So these are 2 teams that know what to do in close games. Eastern Michigan is 2 spots above Pittsburgh in the running game. They're 119th. So neither team wants to run it. They both want to throw it. Mike Glass, the second, is not a bad quarterback. I like Mike Glass, but I don't know. The question is here, how motivated is Pittsburgh? If they're motivated, they should win this game rather easily. This is one of those things also where if you watch a drive or two, Pittsburgh's moving the ball, maybe they kick a field goal, but they at least look interested and moving the ball, bet it live, take the Panthers. But if they come out, they sleepwalk the first couple drives, Eastern Michigan, as you said, is the home team. This is probably another betting opportunity live to see how interested Pittsburgh is in playing in this game.
Good stuff, Matt. We got Friday, December 27th, top of the card here, noon Eastern kick. This is a full Friday slate, guys. It goes all the way from noon, and it will go well past midnight Eastern of college football action on the 27th, Friday here. North Carolina at Temple. We got UNC -4 in the hook, 53 being the total here, Matt.
So I will be in attendance in this game, supporting the Temple Owls. I'm a fan of the Temple there. And I was at the game 2 years ago when they lost to Wake Forest. So if you throw that in your handicap, I'm 0-1 against the spread when they play in the Military Bowl. But let's take a look at both sides. On the North Carolina side, they've missed out on bowls the past couple seasons. There's a new energy with Mac Brown. So I think they're going to be happy to be there. They've played 6 games decided by 4 points or fewer this season. Mac Brown is 13-8 all-time in bowl games. Rod Carey, 0-6 in bowl games. He's lost 5 of those bowls by 21 points or more. Of course, some of those is Northern Illinois just wasn't the same team. They didn't have the talent to match up. Sam Howell is one of the best quarterbacks in the country in terms of how young he is and how successful he's been. 5 300-yard games in his last 7 outings. He threw 2 touchdowns or more in every game, with 3 or more in his last 4 games. The problem is for them is they're a slow-starting team, and then they put it on the fourth quarter. Sam Howell's probably the best quarterback in the nation when it comes to fourth-quarter numbers. They're going to be highly motivated to be here. They've got a lot of athletes. You look on the Temple side. They've lost 3 of their last 4 bowl games. Last year, Daniel Jones put on a great show against Temple. Of course, Rock Ya-Sin, who was their best corner that year, didn't play, and Daniel Jones took advantage of it. Temple's defense is really good, 43rd in the country. They give up 152 yards on the ground, 212 yards through the air. Quincy Roche has 13 sacks on the season. They've allowed 5 yards or fewer per pass 6 times this season and finished the regular season with the 8th most efficient pass defense. But if you go into the numbers a little bit more, they struggled against UCF with all their athletes. They struggled against SMU with all their athletes. Daz Newsome and the Brown kid are really good athletes. My big thing is, as a guy who watches a lot of Temple this year, Anthony Russo is either really hot or really cold. They've got a lot of good athletes themselves. Isaiah Wright has been good. The Brandon Mack kid's good. They've got some decent running backs. It's really a thing of how good is Anthony Russo in this game and how much do they potentially have to use Tan Centejo for his things. I lean to UNC in this game because I think they're going to be really motivated, but I don't love it in terms of – you could also see it over here. 2 of the top 40 teams in terms of seconds per play. So these 2 teams are pretty quick paced. If Temple's offense gets going a little bit, UNC could break a few plays. I lean to the over here as my favorite play in this game.
All right, nice stuff there, Matt. We got next game up, 3:20 estimated kick here. Another game on ESPN. We got Michigan State versus Wake Forest. 3 in the hook, or -4. That's Michigan State Spartans. 50.5 being the total here, Matt. And this is the Pinstripe Bowl here. Yankee Stadium in the Bronx, New York. We got under freezing projected as the weather here. 6 to 8 mile an hour winds, just 8 degrees Fahrenheit in New York at kickoff, man. I don't know. I don't know if there's going to be too many people in the stands here. And the Big Ten team in cold weather, I kind of lean towards Michigan State here, but it hasn't been a good year for Sparty. What are you thinking here in the Pinstripe Bowl?
Question for this is motivation, especially for Michigan State. I mean, look, they're playing in a game that, they didn't expect to be in before the season. As you said, their offense is atrocious. The coach was asked about a lot of the offensive line issues because they've had the junior Kevin Jarvis on the offensive line, a 2-year starter at right guard, started the first 3 games but has not played the final 9 games. The coach was very coy, didn't really answer the question as to whether or not he will play. Good thing is Wake Forest defense is terrible. Neither team can run the ball. Jamie Newman, it looks like, is going to play. The big question is Scotty Washington going to play? The wide receivers missed the last couple of games. He's listed on the depth chart, so that could be a good sign. Sage Surratt and Carlos Basham both announced they're returning for next season, so there won't be any issues in terms of players leaving. The one thing is Wake Forest will not have Nasir Green. He is the safety. He underwent a procedure. Honorable mention, all ACC selection, 65 tackles, 4 pass breakups, 3 forced fumbles, and an interception. He's not going to play in this game for Wake Forest. Wake's defense is horrendous. And the thing is, look, Wake Forest wants to go. Michigan State wants to plod their way down the field. The big question for this game, I'm looking more at the total, is if you think Wake Forest's terrible defense can slow down Michigan State's terrible offense, then you look towards the under because I think Michigan State's defense will show up and at least slow down, Wake. If you think that Michigan State's going to be able to score here, then you probably do look at the over because Wake is just going to want to throw the ball. And as I said, they're one of the quickest teams in the country when it comes to moving with pace here. And you know that Dave Clawson's done some good work. You look at Michigan State against weaker defenses. The last game of the year, they played Maryland, and they only scored 19 points. Not great. They only scored 27 against Rutgers in Piscataway the week before. And then they only scored, they've put up some terrible offensive efforts. So if you think that they're going to continue to play poorly on offense, I lean to the under. If you think Michigan State's offense is going to all of a sudden find its success against a really bad defense, then the over is probably the way to look there.
Matt, next game up, we got Oklahoma State versus Texas A&M. I believe this is Texas Bowl in Energy Stadium in Houston, Texas. Texas A&M -6.5 or -7, depending where you're shopping. 54 the total here. We got the Big 12. We got the SEC. This is a pretty big-time matchup here for Friday, December 27th. Which way are you looking to go here, Cowboys versus the Aggies?
Well, definitely I'm going to ask for your opinion as well in this one because this is actually a game that I don't know as much about. There's a lot of facts out here. Let's start out on the Texas A&M side. The Matabuki kid is not going to play defensive lineman for Texas A&M. That's one of their best, if not their best, defensive linemen. They're also, Texas A&M is down to 1 scholarship running back. Cordarian Richardson is unavailable for this game, so freshman Isaiah Spiller is going to have to carry the water. Starting the last 8 games for the Aggies, 869 yards rushing, 9 touchdowns on the ground this season. Their backup running back is their backup quarterback, Connor Blumrick, who was running in the second-team offense during the open practice session last weekend on Sunday. He's had carries in 3 games this season, 28 yards on 7 carries. So if Texas A&M is going to hope to run the ball and use that to their advantage, they may have to turn to this Blumrick kid to spell Spiller. On the other side, running not an issue for Oklahoma State. Only Oklahoma among Big 12 teams ran the ball better than Oklahoma State. Chuba Hubbard's going to play in this game, so that's pretty big. Beware if that status changes over the next couple of days, but it looks like he's going to play. Looks like Spencer Sanders is going to be the quarterback. Drew Brown is probably also going to play, so we got a 2-quarterback type of system here. On the Oklahoma State side, assistant head coach Casey Dunn is going to UNLV. So is their defensive line coach, Joe Bob Clements. The OC/quarterbacks coach, as Sean Gleason, potentially could go to Rutgers or Texas. So you have to watch out if any of those guys leave officially up until bowl time. It looks like Casey Dunn is going to still coach the ball before going over to UNLV. But if Sean Gleason leaves beforehand, that's the offensive coordinator leaving Oklahoma State. I can honestly say I haven't seen enough of these 2 teams here, but if I'm going off of the personnel stuff, it looks like Oklahoma State has the edge if Texas A&M's best defensive player is not playing and their running back position is down to a freshman and a backup quarterback.
See, Matt, what scares me about Texas A&M is, you look at it's pretty much a team that you could have projected they beat everybody they're supposed to from the beginning of the season, and they lost everybody they were supposed to lose to. I guess the kind of the toss-up game there with Auburn with just a 4-point spread, which they did lose. But I mean, look at Texas A&M's losses: Clemson, Auburn, Alabama, Georgia, LSU. You know, that's as tough as the schedule as it gets, and they are the number one schedule strength in the country. So it's kind of tough for me to power rate Texas A&M, to tell you the truth. There's a chance they could go out there and just, top to bottom roster kind of overpower Oklahoma State. I don't necessarily think that's going to happen. It's what kind of scares me on my confidence level, because I do like the Cowboys, Oklahoma State, the mullet. They're going to run a little up tempo. You talk about Spencer Sanders. I thought he was going to be out, but if he's playing, he's a heck of an athlete, a guy that I'm going to be looking to bet on Oklahoma State next year. I think that they will be able to move the ball. And, I wouldn't take too much away from that Oklahoma State loss to Oklahoma in the last game of the season. It was really cold, really windy. I would have liked to seen that game play, in a little bit more conducive weather there, because I think Oklahoma State might have a shot at knocking off the Sooners. Overall, I like Oklahoma State. I'm looking to bet them. I just want to get a little bit more information on Spencer Sanders and his health. So hopefully that helps the listeners out there. We got next game up, USC versus Iowa. We're seeing the Hawkeyes, -2, 52 the total. And, of course, this is Pac-10 versus Big Ten here. Two prominent programs here, Matt. A pretty, competitive line is out there in the marketplace. We're seeing this one in San Diego, California. Likely going to be good weather here. Going to be a fun one to watch. How did you look to bet the Hawkeyes and Trojans, Matt?
There's a couple of things to consider here. We'll start out with USC. I read a story that basically said every one of the underclassmen that are considering the draft are putting off their decision till afterwards. And that's a big thing when it comes to these bowl games, because as you see, we're going to talk about some other games where underclassmen have decided to leave. So these kids are really focused, it seems like. Plus, whether we get a temperature of how much they like Clay Helton, they did announce that Clay Helton's coming back next year. So that's either going to be really good for the kids and they're going to really want to play for their coach who just got the vote of confidence, or if they're not the biggest fan, then you'll see them kind of lay an egg in this one. USC, over 33 points per game so far this season. They're averaging over 41 points per game their last 3 contests. They have problems with turnovers, though. They've lost this turnover battle 6 times. They're -7 on the year. They're 0-3 when the turnover battle is at -2. Iowa is 3-0 in those games. So Iowa will try and force some turnovers. On the other side, you've got an Iowa defense that's 12th fewest yards per game and 5th fewest points per game, trailing only San Diego State, Ohio State, Georgia, and Clemson in the entire FBS. Iowa has one of the most effective pass defenses, but you can beat them. They've allowed fewer than 200 yards per game 9 times, but they've also allowed over 300 yards in the other 3. But the games where they allowed over 300 yards, they actually won those games. I'm not a big fan of Iowa's offense. I don't think that they're as explosive as USC's is, for sure. The other thing to consider, and you hate to consider stuff like this, is there any motivating factor for the passing of Hayden Fry? Look, I know these kids don't know who Hayden Fry is, but he's big in the program. It's just something to consider there as something small. You look at Iowa's offense, they scored 27, 19, 23, 22, 20 their last 5 games. I think I'm looking at the under here. I think Iowa can drag USC into a Big Ten type of game. I think USC could struggle a bit to score. I think, unfortunately, for the under, there might be a turnover and some short fields. I lean to the under here as the best play in this game, but I'd also probably consider Iowa, even though this game's on the West Coast.
Yeah, I mean, Big Ten teams usually travel well. You'd think that, the Iowa kind of fan base here would get a shot at going to San Diego. They would likely put some butts in the seats. And, yeah, USC not too far from San Diego as well. The only thing that worries me about the under, Matt, is USC played, 5 straight games to the over to end the season. But you're right, Iowa isn't going to play up and down at all. They're mainly defense. They're not going to throw the ball downfield too much. USC, I feel like, has the advantage in terms of playmakers on the outside. And we saw, USC against the same type of profile in Utah. That was the USC's best game, throwing up 50-50 balls on the outside and having some success when they knocked off the Utes. For the Utes' only loss in the regular season, kind of makes me look towards USC here. I mean, Clay Helton, say what you want about him. The kid's played hard for him. He's retaining his job. In my opinion, he should have. So I think +2 here for the Trojans is the side I would look at. We got one more game here, the nightcap on Friday. Man, this is a good Friday slate of bowl games. We got Washington State versus Air Force. Talk about contrasting styles of offense. We're going to see it here. This one at Chase Field, Phoenix, Arizona. This is, it might mean something towards the betting line. It is a baseball stadium. This is where the Arizona Diamondbacks play. It will be a controlled atmosphere will likely with the dome closed. I guess I don't know that for sure, but either way, weather's not going to be too much of a factor. Washington State catching 3, so Air Force -3 favorites here. 67.5 or 68 being the total here, Matt.
Correct. I mean, this is arguably my favorite game of the day because of the contrast in styles. You've got the passing attack of Washington State versus Air Force, who, when their triple options rolling, it's a fantastic offense because they'll even mix in some passing as well. Air Force has had 4 40-point performances this season. They were dominating bad teams. It was New Mexico's 71st, Fresno State, who was 75th, San Jose State, who was 109th, Hawaii is 120th. Washington State's run defense is 107th. In yards per carry. So that means Air Force is going to find some chunks ideally in this game. They rank 17th in overall opposing red zone scoring percentage and 30th in opposing red zone touchdown percentage. So this defense is not as bad as people would think when it comes to it. They have held their last 5 opponents to just 13.8 points per game total. Now, granted, look, there was Wyoming, Colorado State, New Mexico, Army, and Utah State. None of them have the passing attack of Washington State. And if you look, arguably, I'm guessing Colorado plays the best. I mean, obviously, Hawaii also throws the ball. They gave up 26 points to Hawaii. They gave up 23 to Colorado. Those were the 2 best passing attacks that they've seen all year. So I don't think Air Force is going to be afraid of it. And I think that they can match up pretty well. The question is, can they get any pressure? On the Wazoo side, they came out of the Apple Cup with no injuries. They played so disappointing in that game against Washington that you have to wonder if, A, they're really motivated for this game, or B, they're just pissed off after losing last game and want to play better. Mike Leach got the contract extension, but he's 1-8 against the spread in his last 9 bowl games. That's something to pay attention to. Anthony Gordon's thrown 9 interceptions in his last 5 games. Usually when you have extra time to prepare for the triple option, if you prepare for it right, you can have some success. But 2016, Air Force beat South Alabama 45-21. They lost 55-36 to Cal in 2015. I lean to Air Force in this one because they don't get distracted by anything. I have more faith in them scoring touchdowns than I do Wazoo. And I think, look, if this game goes back and forth ping pong style, Air Force is going to be able to control things a little bit more with their offense than Wazoo, who's going to be throwing it a ton. I lean Air Force, and I lean over in this one.
Good stuff, Matt. We got the Friday games in the bag, so to speak. But we got Saturday, December 28th, up next. Iowa State Cyclones versus the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. We're seeing Notre Dame -3 in the hook here, 54 the total. This one not far from where I am right now. Camping World Stadium in Orlando, Florida. Projected weather, low 70s with about 10 miles per hour winds. So we got Iowa State catching 3.5 from Notre Dame, 54.5 the total here, Matt.
First question is, who's calling plays for Notre Dame? We don't know yet. Coach Kelly said basically during a press conference, he's like, well, why don't we just have the fans decide who should call plays? They made the change there at offensive coordinator, and look, he's playing at Coy. We don't know if it's going to be the running backs coach. We don't know tight ends coach, whoever it is. We don't know. So that's a factor. Look, obviously the players know, and they're practicing stuff in practice. Also, what's the motivation for Notre Dame to be in the Camping World Bowl? Like, you look at the other games we're going to get to on this day, and you see all these big games, and then you've got Notre Dame, and they're playing in the Camping World Bowl in Florida. No offense to Marcus Lemonis, because that's his company. I know that. But, like, Notre Dame, they're the better team here. Quite simply, Notre Dame averaging over 37 points per game. They're top 50 in running per game and passing per game. They've allowed fewer than 130 rushing yards in 6 of their last 9. Notre Dame's about as healthy as they can get. It looks like wide receiver Javon McKinley is available after 6 weeks of inactivity. They have a couple of their younger guys who won't be available because they played their 4 games. They want to preserve the red shirt. You look at Iowa State. I like Matt Campbell. I like Brock Purdy a lot. Iowa State's 5 losses this year. Only one of those losses have come by more than 1 score. They lost to Iowa by 1. They lost at Baylor by 2. They lost at Oklahoma by 1. So this is a team that plays close games. They're close. They average over 30 points per game, which is 26th in the country. They want to beat you through the air because they're over 300 yards per game through the air. The offensive line is the fewest sacks allowed in the Big 12. Drew, I really want to take Iowa State here, plus the points. I think the motivation levels for them is we're playing Notre Dame. We're in a crappy bowl, but we're playing a national power in Notre Dame. The question is how Notre Dame is motivated for this game. I think Iowa State is the side I'm going to take. I'm going to wait till closer because, as we said, for some of these games, I want to make sure there's no suspensions. I want to make sure there's nobody with a last-minute decision that they're going pro. I don't want so-and-so saying, yeah, I'm going pro, and I'm stuck with the wrong side, and then I have to buy out of it. So right now, as of this taping on December 23rd, I lean to Iowa State here with the motivation and the opportunity to play a big boy and show what they have.
I'm with you, Matt. Plus the fact, Notre Dame going from the playoffs down to, I'm talking last year to Camping World, which I don't think it's that bad of a bowl, Matt. Why do you think it's so bad of a bowl? They're in Orlando here. That's kind of a good destination for bowl games, no?
Well, considering there's the Cotton Bowl, there's the Peach Bowl, and then there's the other bowl, the Fiesta Bowl, and you're playing in the one bowl that doesn't essentially matter. That's kind of what it is. Now, I know these kids probably don't think that way, and I know Brian Kelly's going to scream at his kids the moment they get off the bus, but I'm just saying, you're playing on a day with all these other big bowls. The TV ratings may not be great because people, who wants to watch Notre Dame play? That's why I'm just thinking this is a great opportunity for Iowa State to show what they've done, and I like Matt Campbell as a head coach.
Yeah, I'm with you. And the play caller at Notre Dame who's calling the plays, there's an angle I like to bet in bowl games. First-time play callers, I kind of look to fade, so it looks like we might have that situation with Notre Dame. I think more is pointing towards the Cyclones, and we've seen it in the line moves from 6.5 down to 3.5 as we're talking right now. We got Memphis and Penn State. This is going to be going simultaneously on Saturday, December 28th, another noon kickoff here. 59.5 being the total. Penn State, Nittany Lions, -7 or -6.5 in this one, Matt?
Well, for a bowl confidence pool, that's just straight up. I'm really confident in Penn State in this one. On the Memphis side, you've got their left tackle, Scotty Dill. He left the team. He's going to either go pro or do something else. He started all 13 games. That's a pretty big thing against a Penn State defensive line. That's pretty good. Ryan Silverfield takes over for Mike Norvell. I like the transition to Silverfield. Kids like him. I don't think that's as much of an issue. This is not like the other stuff and some of the other coaching moves. You're going right to a guy that everybody's familiar with. The one thing that I'm scared of here is Penn State's secondary is a weakness. I watched Minnesota bomb away on them. We've seen Ohio State bomb away on them. Brady White and those guys could certainly move the ball. Tulsa, SMU, and Louisiana Monroe all were able to put up over 500 yards of offense against Memphis that allowed over 400 yards or more in 6 of their last 9 games. So Memphis's defense, not very good. On the Penn State side, freshman running back Noah Cain, who left the Michigan State game with a little injury, didn't play the rest of the season. Franklin says he's almost at 100%, so that's good for the backfield. Sean Clifford, feeling better. He's had a rough November, had a bunch of different injuries, didn't look 100%. KJ Hamler says that the wide receiver says he's not going to make his decision with regards to the NFL until after the game. Heavily motivated to play in this one, so is the Gross Matos kid on the defensive side of the ball. The one question here is, and as you brought up last game, new play caller, Ricky Ronnie, the offensive coordinator, is now the head coach at ODU. So the tight ends coach, Tyler Bowen, is calling plays, and that's presumably his first time. I haven't researched his history. All 5 bowl games under James Franklin have been decided by 7 points or fewer. They are 2-3 straight up. So the negatives for Penn State is here, new play caller, and James Franklin's not a great bowl coach in terms of playing with the spread here. Negatives on the Memphis side, no left tackle, new head coach, a defense that's getting gashed left and right. Everything says Penn State here. But I think maybe the over's worth a look here. I think Penn State gets whatever they want. I think Memphis can backdoor a couple touchdowns here. I think that this is a game that could see a ton of points on that day.
All right, we're talking with Mid-Major Matt on Twitter at Mid-Major Matt. You can follow me on Twitter at Drew Martin Betts. We got the playoff games and then Monday, December 30th bowl games to finish off the Every Game on the Board podcast. We'll have Matt on next Monday to finish off bowl season games here. And guys, special coupon code for this podcast. You can get 7 days all access with Mid-Major Matt for under $10 a day at sportsmemo.com using the coupon code MMM69 at checkout for Mid-Major Matt's 7-day all-access package at sportsmemo.com using the coupon code MMM69 at checkout. We got the playoff games up next, Matt. Oklahoma versus LSU. LSU playing in Atlanta, back-to-back games here. now facing Oklahoma Sooners and having to lay 13 in the hook, 75.5 or 76 being the total. This is the first playoff game, number 1 versus number 4, Saturday night, December 28th. We got it on ESPN, Oklahoma plus 13.5 versus LSU, 76 being the total, Matt.
Both these numbers seem really high. I mean, and there's still a lot of things to consider because there could be injuries. Look, on the LSU side, we don't know what the Edwards-Helaire kid's going to do. He suffered the hamstring injury in practice last week. I have not heard, and if I'm LSU, I'm not going to tell you very much about it, other than he sustained the injury. And if he's close or not, I'm not going to tell you that stuff. They've played 2 games with a total of 70 or more this year, 1 over, 1 under. They allow just 21.6 points per game. They're very good against the rush, 24th in the country, 57th against the pass. On the Oklahoma side, you've got all these suspensions. Running back Ramondre Stevenson, receiver Trajan Bridges, defensive lineman Ronnie Perkins. That's the big one. 13.5 tackles for a loss, 6 sacks in 13 appearances this season. I guess we haven't officially heard that they're out for the game. They could maybe come back in the second half. I don't know if that's been clarified yet. Another injury on the Oklahoma side, DeLauren Turner-Yell, the starting safety, broke his collarbone, 75 tackles and 5.5 tackles for loss. Oklahoma's had 5 games with a total of 70 or more, 2 overs, 3 unders. 5th highest scoring offense in the country, but of course in the Big 12, what does that matter? Because no one plays any sort of defense. This team's actually better number-wise against the on defense than you think. Look, Oklahoma's 32nd against the run, 24th against the pass in the country. Now, I don't like hanging my hat on that because, once again, I don't think Oklahoma is that good, but this number seems high to me. It got up to 78 the first day it came out. I would have taken the under there. I actually, hold your nose here, Drew, but I actually think the under might be worth a look here. Like, I think Joe Burrow and LSU is going to get whatever they want, but I also think that LSU's defense can slow down Oklahoma a bit. I don't know if I'm going to play it yet. I may wait to see if it comes up or down because, as I said, I don't think the public wants to bet unders because they want to see points. So maybe we see a little bit of a buyback and it goes back up. But hold your nose maybe and take the under in this one.
Yeah, that's a tough one to watch if you're going to be taking this one under. I don't necessarily disagree with you, Matt. I can see LSU's defense having some success too. But watching these two teams, or maybe the close your eyes special, hold your nose special, whatever you want to call it, betting this under, that's going to be a rough one. I'm with you, though, Matt. I mean, I think LSU's the side here, minus 13.5, except we've seen this before in college football. Oklahoma, week 4 seed, everybody talking kind of negatively about the Sooners, kind of there had to be a 4th team in, so they kind of get it by default. And LSU, the 1 seed, head of Ohio State and Clemson, and this resume they've been able to put together throughout the regular season in the SEC West, going on the road, beating Texas, beating Georgia in the SEC championship game, now getting to go back. They're already going to be acclimated to the stadium, everything like that. Joe Burrow wins the Heisman, but we've seen that in the past as well. All of these accolades, they're getting patted on the back for, near a month now, mid-major, Matt. They get the Heisman Trophy. Sometimes they come out a little flat in this spot. Could you see that happening with LSU?
I could see that. You've heard for the past couple of weeks that they're going to win this game. They could win the championship. The betting. I'm guessing they're the betting favorites of the 4 to win the national championship. And yeah, you get your smoke puffed up. And then Oklahoma's heard the last couple of weeks. Yeah, you don't belong. Yeah, you're probably going to get killed. Yeah, Jalen Hurts is a nice story, but I mean, I could certainly see them coming out slow. And look, I don't love the under, and it's very tough because 13 is about right. LSU is that much better. If this wasn't the semifinals, if this was once again just a normal game in October and it was played closer to home for LSU, yeah, that seems like about the big number. But you've got this big stage here. Oklahoma covered last year against Alabama in the same situation. Alabama was supposed to smoke Oklahoma, and they did. They beat them 45-34, and they were a 13-point underdog. But Oklahoma backdoor to cover, and this one got to cover. So that's the other thing you worry about here is maybe LSU's up big late, and Oklahoma gets a backdoor touchdown. You lose the 13. So there's just a lot of things to consider for this semifinal game.
Matt, let's talk the next semifinal game here. Number 3, Clemson. Number 2, Ohio State. Rotation number 243, 244. The nightcap on Saturday night, 8 p.m. Eastern kick on ESPN. We're seeing Clemson taking some money, -2 now. 63 the total here, Matt.
So I think this is a personal preference game because I think a lot of people who watch these podcasts are college football fans. I think there's a lot of Big Ten fans. There's a lot of ACC fans. My play here is, and what I'm probably going to end up playing is Clemson Moneyline. I just think Clemson is getting somewhat undersold in this whole thing. Clemson had the really easy schedule. They played 8 bowl games, though. It's funny because they say, oh, Clemson had a really easy schedule. They did end up playing 8 bowl games, and they beat every one of them except for North Carolina by double digits. And they've been impressive this year. Since throwing 8 interceptions in the Tigers' first 7 games, Trevor Lawrence has passed for 23 touchdowns and has thrown 169 consecutive passes without an interception. They've got the wide receivers. They've got the running backs. They've got a great offensive line. The defense might actually be almost as good as it was last year, and they graduated a whole defensive line to the NFL. The secondary might be a little bit of a weak spot. We saw them in the first half get exploited a bit by Virginia. I think Bryce Perkins, found some spots on Kayvon Wallace and those guys. I just really like Clemson. Now, it's partially biased because I've seen a lot more of Clemson than I've seen Ohio State. How 100% is Justin Fields for this game? He did not look 100% the last couple games. Now, granted, they still won. They still put up impressive numbers, but how close to 100%? There's a couple corners who are a little banged up for Ohio State, but with all this time off, you figure that this team's going to be 100%. One thing to see is at home, they've allowed 73.4 rushing yards per game. On the road, they've allowed over 130 rushing yards per game. That includes they played Taylor, the Wisconsin kid. And the one time they shut him down, and then, of course, we saw what he did in the Big Ten championship game. Justin Fields doesn't throw interceptions. They've had 8 fumbles, though, in their last 5 games. Personal preference for me is I just lean Clemson. I think they're getting undersold here. I think all year they've been undersold. I think Dabo's been pushing the right buttons. And by the way, at the ESPN College Football Awards ceremony, no Clemson players got an award. You don't think he's going to use that? I think Clemson's the best team left. I'm taking Clemson on the money line on this game.
I like it, Matt, with some confidence there on Clemson. Good stuff. We got 1 day of games left, 4 bowl games left for this podcast. And, guys, we will be back next Monday with Mid-Major Matt breaking down the rest of the bowl slate. Next game up, kind of under the radar bowl game here, Matt. Battle of the Wests. Talking Western Michigan versus Western Kentucky. We're seeing Western Kentucky -3 with some juice or -3 in the hook, depending where you're shopping. So good one to kind of shop around for the best sports book, depending which side you're liking. 54.5 being the total here. Battle of the West, like we talked about, Matt. This one in Dallas, Texas. Which way would you look? Which West are you looking to bet?
Well, so this is a team we've obviously talked about a lot because they're 2 mid-majors. And for those who are loyal to the podcast, they know I had the over on the Western Kentucky win total for the season. We hit that very easily, which was the irony was they lose that FCS game to Central Arkansas. The Duncan kid goes down at quarterback and Ty Story comes in. But it's really been about the defense. Western Kentucky has the best scoring defense in the Conference USA. They've held their opponents at 20.1 points per game. They allow 137.3 yards rushing per game, which is what Western Michigan kind of wants to do with the Bellamy kid. D'Angelo Malone, one of the best defensive guys in the country, tied for 4th with 21 tackles for loss. He had 11.5 sacks. Conference USA Defensive Player of the Year. A lot to like about Western Kentucky, and I think their defense shows up in this game. The offense is a bit of an issue, though. If you look at times for Western Kentucky, they probably would not have had as good of a record if not for that defense because they held them in these games. If you look, the only 2 times that this team has struggled offensively against the ground were against the 2 Power 5 opponents that they played. I believe it was Arkansas who did really well, and Louisville did really well against Western Kentucky. And I didn't expect Western Kentucky to play well in those games. But, they put up 31 on Middle Tennessee, 28 on Southern Miss, 45 on Arkansas, which is a very surprising score. So Western Kentucky's offense is not the best, not the most reliable. On the other side, you've got Western Michigan. They're 1-8 in bowl games. They've had 2 rushing touchdowns or more in 9 of their last 10 games. They had 7 in the blowout win over Georgia State and 11 over a 2-game span against Bowling Green and Ball State. MAC has accounted for themselves well so far in this in the bowl season so far. Usually, and we talked about in the first one, usually you fade the MAC. It's a blind fade. Well, Kent State won outright. Buffalo won outright. The third bowl game was Central Michigan. Of course, they were outclassed against San Diego State. My thoughts here is if you can get a decent money line, I'm taking Western Kentucky, and I'm leaning to the under here. I think Western Kentucky's defense is the difference. I think Western Michigan hasn't seen too many defenses like this in the MAC. Heck, I don't think they've seen a defense, all season like this because that's just not what the MAC is. The MAC is an offensive juggernaut when it comes to stuff like that. Western Michigan scored 14 points against Northern Illinois, one of the up and down defenses in the MAC. They weren't very healthy for that game. They also scored 17 points against Michigan State. I mean, look, they put up gaudy numbers, but to me, it's a lot of garbage that they did against. I don't think they can do it against Western Kentucky, so I'm leaning towards the Western Kentucky money line if you can get something reasonable, and I'm thinking the under's worth a play here.
Yeah, and good point there. With the money line, I'm kind of leaning here with you with the Hilltoppers. And there is a -3, -120 out there at Bookmaker right now. Maybe a couple other shops in Vegas as well. Western Kentucky -3. Other than that, there is the hook on that 3 if you're looking to go with the CUSA Western Kentucky over the MAC squad. But like Matt said, the first day of games, MAC was 2-0. ATS and straight up, but then did lose there with Central Michigan. So we'll see here on the 30th. Next game up, Illinois at Cal. Again, I said at Cal. It's from Berkeley to Santa Clara, but it is much closer to Berkeley than it is to Champaign. We got 43 being the total, -6 or -6.5. That's Cal lane in this one, Matt.
Well, both these teams are going to be here. I mean, we've got two relatively new bowl. I mean, not necessarily new for Cal, and I mean, it's been a couple of years, but obviously we've got two teams who want to be here, so that's the first thing you get out of the way. Cal, as you said, is the favorite in this one. We'll start out there. They've played better with Chase Garbers at quarterback. Look, they had a really rough stretch with the backup, and then I believe they actually put the third string in at some point. Cal's offense tailed off. Their defense still played well, but it was on the field too much, so it struggled. It's a top 35 defense, which is particularly good against defending the run. If Cal can get the points, then I'm not that worried about this. You look, wide receiver Jordan Duncan was excused from practice for personal issues. His status is up in the air. Safety Ashton Davis will not play. He underwent a minor procedure. Their offensive coordinator, Bo Baldwin, left for Cal Poly. It looks like he's taking the running backs coach, Nicholas Edwards, with him. 2018, the bowl game, the Cheez-It Bowl, 10-7 OT to TCU in one of the worst bowl games last year. Look, Cal allows nearly 4 sacks per game, so it's the one place that Illinois can exploit them. But on the other end, you look at Illinois, what do they do really well here? Their offense is outside top 75 in scoring offense. They're bottom half in offensive yards per game. They scored 10 points against Iowa. They scored 10 points against Northwestern. Look, you got to do better at home in that final game of the year against Northwestern. It feels like they rode the high to get to bowl eligibility, and then they're like, yay, we're bowl eligible. Now they kind of like fallen off. Brandon Peters, whose status was questionable for this one all throughout, it seems like he may play because he's been available for the pre-Red Box press conference. And usually you're not going to let the kids who are hurt or not going to play be available for the press conferences. Still something to look into as we get close to the game. Maybe his status changes. I lean to Cal here. I'm a high confidence guy in terms of Cal winning this game and like a straight-up confidence type pool thing. I think their defense shows up here. I don't think Illinois is a great story. That 4-game win streak is really good. But, like, to me, I don't see any reason to back Illinois here. I like as long as it's under 7, I think Cal wins this game, and I think the under might be worth a look. But no rush to play this game because as we get to it, like, look, there's a ton of good games. But I like Cal. Maybe you want to do a money line parlay and throw Cal in there with something else. But I think Cal wins this game. Fairly confident in that, but maybe not necessarily cover the spread.
And that Big Ten Pac-12 game is on Fox. The next two here on ESPN to finish out this segment of the podcast. Monday, December 30th, 8 p.m. Eastern here. This is a big one, Matt. In the Orange Bowl, we're talking the Virginia Cavaliers and the Florida Gators here. 54.5 being the total. We're now seeing Florida -14 in the hook. This is going to be a tough ticket to get, Matt. I'm going to be going to it. It's going to be a fun one here. Both fan bases kind of excited. There is a large contingency of Florida Gator alumni in the Broward-Dade area. This one in Miami Gardens, Hard Rock Stadium, the stadium that Miami Dolphins play in. We got Virginia catching 14 in the hook, 54 the total here, Matt.
Well, the Orange Bowl traditionally has not delivered. 4 of the last 5, 9 of the last 10 have been decided by double digits. I mean, that's one thing to consider here. Another reason why the spread's pretty big. On the Florida side, no C.J. Henderson, one of the best corners in football. He is stepping out due to draft prep. The defense is ridiculous. Second in the SEC in total defense, rushing defense, and scoring defense. They allow 14.4 points per game. The Gators have had troubles, though, getting their ground game going. They're going to be pretty, one-dimensional, it feels like, with Trask at quarterback. They're last in the SEC in rushing offense, which works out well because UVA's secondary is brutal. You watch that Clemson game, and if you're Trask and those guys on offense, you're salivating because ever since losing Bryce Hall
Right.
and losing about 4 or 5 other guys, UVA can't stop anybody. It looks like on the Wahoo side, Jordan Mack and Joe Reed are going to play. That's defensive. That's difference makers on both sides of the ball. Bryce Perkins has been hot, 250 yards throwing or more in 4 of his last 5. He ran for over 100 yards in 3 of his last 4. But, yeah, the secondary has allowed over 1,000 passing yards in their last 3 games and over 300 yards in 4 of its last 5. The question is here, I think Florida's going to be motivated because they're home, and I think that the Orange Bowl is really good. So Virginia's not going to catch them falling asleep. But do we get to Virginia in the first half of that Clemson game? Virginia emptied out the playbook. They put out their package where they had Brennan Armstrong, the backup quarterback, and they also had Bryce Perkins out there at the same time. There's things you can do with it. I think UVA is going to have some wrinkles in this game. I don't know necessarily if it's going to help them cover. I think UVA's offense can move the ball a little bit in this one. The over's not a terrible look because I think Florida's going to be able to score here. The big question is UVA's front 7 has been really good this year. Their linebackers have, I think, at least 30 sacks by themselves. This Charles Snowden kid's a freak. He's like 6'8" at linebacker. He's a ridiculous athlete when it comes to that stuff. But they have not seen athletes like Florida this year very often. The last time they did was, well, probably the ACC title game, and we know how that worked out. Lean to the over here. I think Virginia scores some points. I think Florida can get to 40 themselves. Maybe it's like a 42-15, 42-20 type game. I think UVA can find some points even if it's late in the fourth quarter.
And guys, you can find Mid-Major Matt's services at sportsmemo.com. Obviously, the coupon code there, MMM69 at checkout for a 7-day all-access package for less than $10 a day using the coupon code MMM69 at checkout. And Matt also has a radio show there in Richmond, Virginia. Matt, where's it at again? ESPN Richmond?
ESPN Richmond. I'm on from 3 to 4. I have a Saturday show that does a lot of college football, college basketball. If you're thinking of betting on any games involving any of the Virginia schools, so Tech, UVA, Richmond, VCU, ODU, stuff like that, we do some previews on Saturday. Taking a couple weeks off for the holidays because our station is the one that airs all the bowl games, so they're all in the afternoon. So I'll be home watching a lot of them. But once 2020 hits around, then, yeah, we'll be back on the air doing some shows here in Richmond.
So you're the perfect person to ask. In terms of the Virginia fan base and just in that area, I mean, this is the biggest bowl game they've been in quite some time. What would you say kind of the motivation overall is for the program?
I would think they're going to be highly motivated for this one, and it's an opportunity. They've kind of pointed to this whole 3-game thing here, which is ironic because they've got Clemson that they play in the ACC championship game. They've got this bowl game, and then next year in the Chick-fil-A Kickoff Classic, they're playing Georgia. So this is the big 3 games for them to see where they are. So far, they kind of failed test 1. I think Virginia is going to have all this time to put some wrinkles in on the offense, and that's why I think the over's worth a look here. But Florida's going to get theirs. But I think at least if Virginia can punch Florida in the mouth the first drive or two, then that's going to get their attention, kind of like they did to Clemson. If I remember correctly, I believe Virginia was up at the end of the first quarter of the Clemson game because they scored those first couple times. Now, Clemson clamped down and eventually said, now, wait a second, we should beat them by a lot. And they did, but maybe the same thing happens in this one. That's why my favorite play in this game is the over. All
right, Matt, good stuff there, man. We got last game up, 4 o'clock Eastern kick on ESPN, talking Mississippi State versus Louisville. 63.5 the total. Mississippi State -4 in this one. And, of course, this game in Nissan Stadium, Nashville, Tennessee. Looks to be projected about 40 degrees Fahrenheit with about 10 miles per hour winds. We will see, though, because this game is a week away from where we're talking right now. But Mississippi State versus Louisville, Matt, what are you thinking?
Things to consider here. Mississippi State will be without their cornerback Cameron Dantzler. He is going to be doing both NFL draft prep. 40 tackles, 2 for loss, half a sack, 2 interceptions in 9 games. Also not playing is their nickelback Brian Cole II, 67 tackles, 2 sacks, 2 fumble recoveries, and interception in 12 games. Freshman Garrett Schrader is going to start the game at quarterback in 10 appearances this year. He's completed 88 of 153 attempts, 1,170 yards, and 8 touchdowns. He's also a mobile threat, 587 yards and 6 touchdowns on the ground. So he's a very good player in terms of mobility when it comes to that. One of their coaches, their linebackers coach, is going to go to Florida State with Mike Norvell. We don't know if he's going to coach in the game. It's the linebackers coach, not a big deal. Mississippi State, 18th in the nation in rush defense. They average over 220 yards per game on the ground. Louisville just allowed 517 rushing yards to Kentucky. in the rivalry game. Their rush defense is 115th overall in the country. On the Louisville side, they're not going to have Mekhi Becton, a Richmond product from the Richmond area. He's their star left tackle, won the Best Offensive Lineman Award. Louisville allows close to 3 sacks per game and is second worst in the nation in tackles for loss allowed. So that's something to consider here. But Louisville's got a really nice offense, and I really like what Scott Satterfield's done. They're going to be motivated to play in this game. The Javian Hawkins kid's a freshman, over 1,400 yards rushing, 8 touchdowns. He's rushed over 100 yards 7 times so far this season. The total's a little high in this one, but I don't know if it's high enough. I think Mississippi State can get whatever they want offensively. I think Louisville also could get a little bit going in terms of offense. I think that the Cunningham kid under center is not a bad player. I think this spread's about right. I don't love either side of the spread because I think Louisville's going to be competitive here, despite the fact that Mississippi State should be able to get whatever they want. Kylan Hill's a really good running back. If you play DFS, I'd play Kylan Hill on that day because I think he's going to have a big day for Mississippi State. SEC, ACC, you usually lean to the SEC, especially considering the down year the ACC has. But once again, as you said, we're about a week out. Still things can happen. Injuries, suspensions, quarterback changes, coaching changes. So it's something where I have my eyes on this game. But as we get closer, I'll probably solidify something as there's still a lot of things up in the air that could happen.
Yeah, this is a tough one for me, Matt, in terms of the handicapping. You know, motivation, is it there for Mississippi State? I mean, don't forget, this is a very unique, some would call it funny, some would call it disgusting touchdown celebration in the Egg Bowl away from not being here. 6-6, they would have ended the season 5-7 if Ole Miss didn't have that touchdown celebration. And then Louisville, I'm with you. They're going to have motivation. Coaching-wise, I give it to Louisville. It's just the whole, like you just talked about, the SEC might maybe having an advantage over the ACC, especially this year. I don't know, kind of contrasting things here in the handicap. But you haven't bet it yet?
No, I haven't yet. I'm going to wait till a little closer, see if the public moves in. And look, this doesn't mean necessarily that it's going to decide my play, but it might be either I have a play in mind and the line moves away from it and I get off of it, or the line moves in my favor and I take it. So I'm going to kind of wait a little bit as we get closer. As we've talked about, the sharps bet these games the moment the line comes out. And then we see all this line movement. Then it kind of stagnates for a little bit as you get closer. And once the betting public, which is people start betting like a day or two before the game, then we'll start seeing the line move. And that'll kind of help me decide as I don't really have a lean in this game. I think it's going to be a really good game. If you're questioning the motivation of Mississippi State, this is also a live opportunity. If Louisville scores early, if Louisville looks like they want to be there more than Mississippi State, maybe you jump in the middle of the game, you take Louisville. If you're a Mississippi State backer and they don't look good early, but you still think they're going to win, maybe you take Mississippi State live. So, we talk about these games a week out, but don't be afraid to bet these games live because usually there's some angles and there's some things that you can figure out when it comes to in-game betting after watching a drive or two.
He's Mid-Major Matt. Listen to him on ESPN Richmond. Follow him on Twitter at Mid-Major Matt. You can follow myself on Twitter at Drew Martin Bets. And you can get Mid-Major Matt's 7-day all-access service at sportsmemo.com for less than $10 a day using the coupon code MMM69 at checkout. That's $50 off at sportsmemo.com for a 7-day all-access package for only $69 using the coupon code MMM69 at checkout. That's 16 games we just broke down, Matt, from Christmas Eve, yes, BYU, Hawaii, down to Monday, December 30th nightcap, Mississippi State, Louisville, Virginia, Florida there. So next Monday, we'll break down Tuesday, December 31st, New Year's Eve slate. We got the New Year's Day bowl games. We got all the way through the end with Mid-Major Matt coming up next Monday. But Mid-Major Matt, we did it all in under an hour. Throw it over to you for any closing thoughts and any best bet you wanted to throw out there to the watchers, man.
Well, the other thing I want to touch on real quick, because as of the taping on December 23rd, the line's not out yet for the FCS championship game. It's kind of as we predicted as we went along. It's JMU. It's North Dakota State. The line's not out yet. I'm not even going to guess. I don't think it's going to be more than a field goal either direction. Throughout this run, JMU has consistently played better than North Dakota State. Now, the Bison kicked the butt of Montana State last week. So here's how you kind of attack it. The line's not out yet. I like JMU. I think JMU's going to win. If JMU's an underdog, I'm taking them. I don't care if they're an underdog of 1. I don't care if they're an underdog of 10. I don't think they will be. I'm taking JMU plus the points, and I'm probably taking the JMU money line. If JMU's somehow favored, then that's something different, and we'll talk about that next podcast next Monday. We don't even know when the line's coming out because this game is on Saturday, January 11th. But I think JMU's the better team. I think that, look, they're familiar with North Dakota State. The other thing to consider, and much like we talk about with these bowl games, January 11th is a far time away. If somebody gets suspended, if somebody gets sick, if there's some injuries in practice, that's going to make a difference. Both of these teams are used to the long layoffs, so that won't be an issue. But depending upon when this line comes out and what it is, I'm jumping on JMU money line and the JMU at Dukes as an underdog. I think they're just the most complete team in the FCS. So we'll keep our eyes on it. We'll touch on it again next Monday. Hopefully the line is out by then. But if between now and then it comes out, JMU's the underdog, I'm taking JMU plus the points. I'm taking them as a money line underdog. And I think they're the best team in the country.
Best of luck with your bets, boys.